Oi, what's up? It's Demented, and today I want to re-record a video for you guys because I made a video a while ago talking about how to play Moira with this exact same thumbnail that I'm using for this one, but this is a different video solely because I accidentally deleted the first one. I still have the file, but I also, looking back on it, think I didn't put as much effort into it as I probably should have in terms of everything. So I wanted to, be a little bit more thorough with this one and just talk about how to play Moira again, because Moira, along with main support, which I typically cover, are, I would say, two of the biggest missed factors in the entirety of especially the competitive scene. No one really looks at main support that difficult or looks in depth very much at Moira. But I feel like you should, realistically, because these are things that aren't very hard, yes, but that does not mean you have an excuse to not learn about them. So with that being said, let's talk about her. I want to hit mostly the exact same things that I either hit before or stuff that I can be a little bit more thorough about before, but to, bring my most general thing in, I want to talk about her orb usage. If you're playing Moira, never use a fucking damage orb. I will fucking snap at you in an instant if you ever throw a damage orb. And if you know me, I'm never someone who brings up numbers about or statistical shit about why you shouldn't do something. Sometimes it's just common knowledge to do something better, but for this reason, and I want to make sure that you fully understand how bad damage orb really is, because some people watch one too many Samito videos and thinks that fucking Moira orb is the most broken ability ever. Let me tell you about Healing Orb. So Healing Orb not only does more things per second, and what I mean by that is if you throw a damage orb, you're doing 50 damage per second. If you throw a healing orb, you're doing 65 heals per second, which is, just a bigger number. As well as the damage orb can do up to 200 damage. That's cool and all, but the healing orb can do up to 300 healing. You are now doubling the value of the damage orb just by clicking the opposite button. And I don't understand why so many people are caught up on this, or find it weird, or think that, oh, maybe I can just throw this to get the final hit. And it's man, it's so much more effort to do that, and it overall fucks you over. Because, and I said the same thing when I talked about my how to actually play main supports video, that the entirety of Moira's kit is based on uptime. What do I mean by that? I mean by basically her peel is really good, which I'll get into in a second, and her heals overall are just insane. But it's only as insane as you have healing resources for. So I'll also talk about how to juggle all those resources in a second. But basically, to finish off everything, so with either orb, you throw it and it kind of latches onto someone. And I'm trying to see which alright, here it is. So not only is damage orb worse in every place, in every way, output wise and peak wise, but you have to be more accurate with it, which fucking Moira orb and accuracy is not something to think about too much. But if you're looking at it, I would rather throw a healing orb that can constantly bounce back and forth in a corridor, that can constantly heal my team for pretty much the entire duration of it, to use all of it and constantly get pretty much guaranteed ult charge from it, as well as you keep getting more healing resource as your orb is out. But again, I'll talk about juggling in a second. There's no reason for it. It latches on at a longer range even. Healing Orb latches on at 5 meters as opposed to Damage Orb latching on at 4, which I think is the most blatant thing about it, because it's really difficult to make a case for that anymore. As well as, like, if you let me just stop there. I've already made my point, or at least I should have at this point. And something that I thought was really interesting, in my first video, I had someone whose name I can't remember for the life of me that was commenting a lot of questions about specific matchups or specific scenarios in the comments, and I was able to respond to them with how I think the proper way of playing it would work, even if it seems like something that maybe you should use a damage orb just to, like, again, as I mentioned earlier, to like final hit someone. I can bring you a healthy alternative that won't fuck you over, pretty much. So that's that. But next, I want to talk about Peel, because holy shit, I don't exactly know what the majority of people think for what a good pocket is, but I think if you're thinking of a pocket pick, you're thinking of a Mercy, someone who's constantly beaming someone in some way, shape, or form, and most of the time it's on to someone who's really fucking annoying to be pocketed. But the downside with Mercy's pocket is her output. She does not output that much healing as opposed to Moira. So for those of you who are unaware, Moira, when using her healing as well as a healing orb, I believe does somewhere in the range of 135 healing per second. And to put that into perspective, that is I mean, just think of an average Squishy's health bar of 200 HP. Think about how much pocket that is, especially if you throw it in a direction that you and or the person that you're pocketing will be walking in the direction of, because I think that is absolutely fucking crazy. Not to mention, self-peel is insane on Moira in terms of her fade can obviously get you out of a lot of bad situations, as well as it just in general like is a really good way to trick people, because instead of the average way that people would just use it as their get out of jail free card, like, people need to understand that it's such a powerful ability for both, like, I guess both offensively and defensively, if you want to think about it like that, because you're able to do so much. It's very versatile, even though it doesn't seem like it, but it's all about how you use it, because the odds are, if you're watching, like, if you're thinking, I don't know, if you're like a Tracer player, for instance, and you're chasing down a Moira, and you see the Moira like backing up from you to take the duel and fading away, you're gonna chase that direction. But as an example of where you can be more versatile in it, if you aggressively fade, if you keep walking back until the fade animation completes, and then aggressively fade through the Tracer, like, you now have so much more time that's building up basically towards you having another fade. And that's also something that I'll bring up with Juggling, is cooldown juggling, but that'll all be for a bit. But basically, Moira's peel is fucking insane, and I think if there's any character that you are going to experience a ton of how the fuck is this person alive moments, it is gonna be on Moira, like 100%. So with that being said, let's go into Juggling, because I think basically the entirety of Moira's kit revolves around Juggling, Fade, and Orb. Basically, you can do a lot of dumb shit on Moira. That is a given, but you are only limited by how much resources you give yourself. And to start with cooldown juggling, you basically, if you get poked out really hard, you should have fade up and then immediately be able to self heal orb. And whenever your like orb is up, if you're like putting it in a, you want to put it in a position to like solely pocket you in most cases, where if people chase you and find where you are, then you're just getting that 65 healing per second, as well as your 20 HP per second from the right click. I did use my hands for that, don't judge me. Anyways, you can make people work for it so much, and every time you blow fade or you like have a like, you're basically able to live forever until you're out of both cooldowns. And I think that's something that's really important that people not a lot of times think about. And I'll recommend one person to watch in the Overwatch League at the end of the video, but I mean, because I've bitched about a fair amount of Flex Support's Moira play, but overall, I really like this about her kit, that it's really based on cooldowns and like juggling them and making sure that you're actually being smart and thinking about it every time you're using it. Now, juggling healing resources is something a little bit different. I want to bring up firstly that pretty much anytime that you have a healing orb out, you should be sucking, which is basically your right click, and you're constantly regenning that piss charge. And then as soon as and that's just what I'm gonna refer to it as, it's your healing left hand, whatever the fuck. Basically, you want to be using your primary hand or whatever whenever you have no other resource, because orb just, it does so much that it's honestly like so good for consistent heals. But if you need burst healing, you can use both the primary fire, a little bit of the primary fire. Don't spam it, don't hold it, don't do a whole lot, just like kind of briskly go over everyone with it a little. Everyone gets a little squirt, and then everyone gets a little golden shower, and then you're back to normal. Then you're big chillin'. Then you're back to damaging, because you want to keep, no matter what, you want to always have a healing resource. Orb isn't gonna do everything, and neither is your piss. They are two separate elements and should be used in that regard, as well as, I mean, obviously sometimes they form the yin yang and fucking can heal for 135 HP or whatever the fuck, but ultimately it's so good to keep cycling through them. And again, that's also why you never use damage orb, because damage orb doesn't give you your resource back. Actually damaging does, and that's where your damage is going to come from. And that's what kind of sucks, because if people are thinking about good Moira players, they're thinking about people that have like big flashy medals or whatever, and it's like, fuck that, just heal, bro. Like, obviously you're gonna do your damage and shit with Cole, but like, your damage is just your right click. Like, fuck everything else. But anyways, what next? I mean, I think it's pretty common knowledge at this point that basically whenever you're playing the Cole, obviously throwing orb is just the best thing to do pretty much, and what dictates what you throw is basically what you want there to be a burst of, which in most cases is probably going to be damage, so that'll be mostly the only thing that you want to like use damage orb for ever. As well as Cole is also another really good tool for self heal, because the 50 healing per second that you get to a I guess just as a passive on yourself while the ult's going off, which again I think is really fucking cool that she has so many ways to be annoying, especially because I love being annoying, so it's kind of mutually exclusive. But I mean, overall, I want people to not hate Moira players, and I want Moira to actually be a somewhat like raised hero when people are thinking about stuff that actually kind of takes skill, because honestly, if you can do all of this like perfectly, it takes a lot, more or less. But as I said, in terms of who I would recommend watching Fielder, and for that reason in particular, that there's not many people that do all this shit. But if you're thinking about it, what is the only Moira that stands out in the league? It's Fielder. Why? Because he actually put the time into learning Moira. No one else in the league knows how to play her, and it's very evident. And I don't even think that Fielder does everything right 100%, but if I'm thinking of someone who you can look at, I don't fucking watch other content creators, so personally I don't fucking know, but if that's a like example I could give you, that would be the one I would. So I mean, I'm trying to think of anything else that I need to hit on, because I think I've hit everything. But I mean, I guess as just like a follow-up thing on the orb usage, always bounce your fucking orbs, because again, uptime is the name of the game. We don't want an orb that's gonna like pass through people, and you can go and watch some of my Flex Support VOD reviews about watching those guys play Moira, and how many times people throw an orb in a straight line that then bounces and goes into fucking outer space. It's not good. You want as much of the healing orb to get used as possible, and overall you just want to make sure that you're getting the most out of every single cooldown that you have, because the second you don't get the most out of every cooldown, that's when she becomes the like evidently most obsolete character, on top of how much of a disadvantage you're already at due to lack of like major utility, but you do shit out healing. So I hope this helped. I really like playing Moira personally, and I think a lot of more people need to not even like main her, but like just learn how to play her, like actually learn. So I mean, again, I appreciate the fuck out of all of you for watching this video again if you watched my first one, and sorry I was really low effort in the first one and was very sloppy enough to fucking delete it. But I appreciate the fuck out of all of you, and if you want to know whenever I upload, follow me on Twitter, and I will see you when I see you. Later.